Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on transforming public administration with process automation, featuring Utah Department of Health and Human Services. My name is Hannah, and I'm the digital marketing and event specialist here at FlowForma. So, just some webinar housekeeping. So this webinar is being recorded, and if you need any assistance during the webinar, you can email the address on your screen. Your lines are muted, but we're going to try and keep this as interactive as possible. So please use the question box or the chat box, and we will have a Q&A session at the end, and we'll try and get to all of your questions as well. So we're going to be meeting our experts. So firstly, we have Sarah Klenk from the Utah Department of Health and Human Services. So Sarah has been working for the department for over 12 years and is the driving force behind any of the SharePoint projects. Hi, Sarah. Thanks so much for joining us.
Hello.
And then we also have on the FlowForma side is Robert Kane. And Robert is our digital strategist here at FlowForma. Robert is passionate about supporting companies on their digitalization journeys. He has 6 years of experience onboarding companies with the FlowForma platform. Robbie also has a wealth of experience in supporting companies digitalize simple to complex processes with FlowForma. Hi, Robbie. Thank you for joining us today.
Hello, no problem.
And then we also have David Shanley, and he is our solution expert here at FlowForma. David is committed to supporting organizations to evaluate FlowForma and demonstrate proof of value. David has over 9 years experience on the FlowForma process automation platform, and he is an expert when it comes to anything process. So hi, David. Thank you for joining us.
No problem.
And then I'm just going to go over our just agenda for today. So we have a 1 hour webinar. Robbie will be talking us through our introduction to FlowForma. Then we'll have a customer interview with Sarah Klenk from the Utah Department of Health and Human Services. We'll also be going through a live AI-powered process automation demo with David. And then lastly, we'll have our question and answers for any of your process automation questions. And then we will be going over to Robbie. I'll let you take it over there.
Cheers, thanks, Hannah. Yeah, so just a brief overview of FlowForma. So FlowForma is a world leader in enterprise-class digital process automation. It's designed for businesses and IT teams seeking to rapidly digitize their processes, collect better data, and achieve operational excellence. It's ideal for mid to large size enterprises that want to empower their staff to digitize and optimize any business process, no matter how complex. In fact, we excel at the complex, as you'll see now later on in the webinar. Just in terms of our global footprint, we have over 300,000 users in terms of across 20 different countries, and we specialize in rapid adoption. So our customers typically see their first processes going live within 4 weeks of onboarding, and then we pride ourselves with our 5-star support. So we maintain a close relationship with you in terms of onboarding you and enabling your success.
Thanks so much for that, Robbie. Now we're going to have our customer interview with Sarah Klenk from the Utah Department of Health and Human Services. Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you so much, Robbie.
Cheers, thanks, Hannah. Hi, Sarah.
Hello.
So I suppose to start off with, tell us a little bit about the Department of Health and Human Services and your role there.
The Department of Health and Human Services is a social organization. We work with individuals in the communities providing services like education. We work with organizations like WIC, which works with women and children. So it's more of a social organization that runs social programs for Utahns. And I have been working for the department for about 12 years now. And I am the SharePoint administrator here.
Okay, great stuff. So, just in terms of your journey with the Department of Health and Human Services there, what led you to seek a process automation platform?
Well, we were actually migrating to SharePoint Online. And I'm not sure if everyone, you probably all know that Microsoft had decided to deprecate InfoPath. And all our processes were built in InfoPath. So that's the reason why we were looking for a replacement for InfoPath. So that's how we um, came across FlowForma.
Okay, and in terms of the migration away from InfoPath, it was also in parallel to that. I suppose there was a lot of still manual paper-based processes that you needed to digitize.
Oh yes,
Was
oh
there?
yes, and this you were still working through those processes, but yes, there's still a lot of processes. The department is a little slow in kind of adopting technology, so that we still have a lot of processes. We have migrated about 30% of our processes to FlowForma, and we're still working through those. But yes, that's one of the reasons. Yes.
Okay, so in terms of your time with the Department of Health and Human Services and those challenges in terms of a migration away from InfoPath, I know in terms of your success criteria, you wanted a no-code, user-friendly process automation platform, one that could also service across departmental rollout. So with these challenges in mind, what influenced your decision to select FlowForm as the solution?
Um, so you just mentioned no code. We in the Department of Health, um, our SharePoint environment has different users, different levels, and they're all responsible of building certain processes. So we wanted a solution that any regular user with no development background is able to use. So we were looking for something that was easy to learn, user friendly, and for any regular user um, to be able to build a simple process if they needed to. And Flowforma met that for us. And also, the reason why we chose Flowforma is that um, we were provided a certain budget and we couldn't go over that. Flowforma was very affordable for us, met our budget. And the reason why it did that is because we were looking for a tool that actually would allow us to be able to uh, um, have the ability to sign for signatures and also for document generation and all the other tools that we looked at. Those components were priced separately, and it would have costed us a lot of money. Like with Flowforma, the integration of signature and document uh, generation in one was something that was very affordable, and that's actually one of our major decisions in going with Flowforma, as well as the combination of the form plus the workflow into one. So you wouldn't be purchasing a workflow separately and purchasing a form feature separately. So it's all integrated into one, and that is what we were. That's what sold us.
Excellent. Yeah, I know as part of that comparison, it was Power Apps initially that you were weighing up in terms of
Yes.
the decision between Power Apps and Flowform. One of the compelling comparatives was those two elements that you mentioned. It was the signature packs and document generation. Obviously, it'd be a
Hmm.
consumption-based model with Power Apps. So on the surface, these things can start out small or a small fee. They
They
appeared
go,
free
yeah.
on the surface, but when you actually do the cost benefit analysis on them, they turn out to be quite expensive, and that's where FlowForma differentiates. So that was a key factor in the influence to go with FlowForma.
Exactly. So with Power Automate it is just a workflow. If you want to build a form, you would have to have Power Apps, and that's also priced separately. So you would have to purchase Power Automate and Power Apps to be able to build a process that you need that had all the features you needed. But with FlowForma, it's all integrated within it, and it's for the same price.
I know as part of your evaluation as well, Sarah, the ability to build out complex processes in FlowForma, that was a key differentiator.
Right, right. So you know, with the so you may think that because it's a low code process that you cannot build complex processes, but we actually have built quite very complex processes within the department that spans through across the department through the all the different divisions, organization, and office. With FlowForma. So yes, it can manage those complex processes.
Great. So in terms of those cross-departmental processes, those complex
Mhm.
cross-departmental processes, what has been automated with FlowForma so far?
So quite a few. We have automated the contracts system. It's a contracts management system, and what that system is we as the organization we contract with different vendors within the Utah community to help run the programs. So contract management system and grant revenue. This is a system that we use for managing all the grants that have been granted to uh, businesses and different individuals in the community. And we also have the purchasing system. This system is used for purchasing everything in the state of Utah. If you're buying phones, paper clips, computers, anything, so that's the purchasing system. And then we have the travel. This is the system that actually manages all our travel for all the employees and non-employees and doctors, all uh, we use that to manage the travel for them because travel has to be approved obviously before any employee is able to travel. And then we have group gathering. This manages all the meetings because that also has to be approved by the department. And then we have risk assessment, and then also statement of work, APR, and legislative affair reports. There are many more, but these are the ones that are more complex and spans across the organization.
Okay, can you talk a little bit about the before and the after state of that contract management system before it was digitized in FlowForma? Because I know we've spoken before where it took months before to complete, and then you'd reduce that down to a matter of days. Can you speak a bit more about that?
Yes, with the contract system, it was taking for the contract system is an approval system, obviously. So it was taking about 2 months just to get contract approved and assigned because, excuse me, excuse me, because it required signatures from the funding office, the program managers, the division director, the office director, all the way to the state governor's office, depending on obviously how big the contract is. And it would take months because the users were using emails, the back and forth email if the contract was rejected or it needed editing. So it was just taking a really long time to just get a contract in place. But after FlowForma, it literally went down to a week. And for those emergency contracts, it would take a couple hours, as long as the users knew. It could take a day, as long as you put it through and you mark it as an urgent contract. So it just completely compressed that timeline, and our managers were very, very pleased, because then we, it just streamlined the process extremely. So actually, it's the reason why FlowForma was then, uh, the manage why we got so much support from managers, because of how efficient contract became for the department. And that's when we started building all the other processes to make him just as efficient.
Yeah, it's an incredible metric. So, just in terms of outcomes for the Department of Health and Human Services, what outcomes have you realised by automating processes with FlowForma?
Obviously, efficiency, yeah, just like I just mentioned, and also visibility, meaning the managers are able to, they have the data to be able to see where the contract is, and also we have reports available for that. So that's the visibility and compliance in terms of auditing. We have auditors within the department that audit the systems, and now we have the data. We, at a click of a button, when an auditor asks for data, when the contract, who approved the contract, when it was approved, for how much, how many contracts were approved, and all that. So it also helps us with that, with audit. And obviously, it eliminated the paper process. The back and forth of the emails, and having those duplicate documents in people's
Yeah,
computers, as well. Documents getting lost in different folders and different computers, and also standardization of the data as well, and with the contracting system as well, and any of our processes, they're scalable. We are always modifying it and enhancing it. Processes are always changing, and the flexibility of just kind of upgrading the contract, and obviously as Flowforma also upgrades their process, their features, we're able to also implement those in our processes, just to keep them up to date with technology.
yeah. The ability to how agile FlowForma is to go in and make changes to processes in flight. So,
Yes.
given all this success to date, Sarah, what's next on the roadmap? Can you share what's coming up for you in terms of future plans for FlowForma?
um, just continue what we're doing right now, is just moving all our paper processes and automating them. Like I said, the department, because we're a government agency, we're a little slow in adopting new technology. So there's still a lot of processes that are still manual and are still email based. And we're working through all the different divisions and the departments, and working through all the different teams, and helping them migrate their process and build their process and automate it. So just the continual improvement of all these processes, and moving them into Proforma and digitizing them, so that they are up to date. So that's what we're doing right now, and that's our
Oh,
future.
good stuff. Okay, cheers. Thanks for that. And
Yeah.
so, given your experience and the journey that you've been on, um, what tips do you have for users starting out on their digital transformation journey?
The main tip I would have, for me, actually, when I first started, was to find the most visible process when introducing a new technology. Um, it's really difficult sometimes when it comes to change management. Users are very resistant to new technology sometimes, because they're used to doing things the way they like it. Even if it's email and it's paper based, they just love it. It's comfortable for them. So
Yeah,
when you're
yeah,
introducing new technology, there's resistance there. So my tip would be, find the most visible process that's very painful for management and users, and anything that always has audit findings. Build that process, demonstrate it to managers, get approval, get management backup. Once you have that, you will find that then the transition to your processes are more seamless, because you have the backing of management and they can see the results, what you're building. So that's my main tip, is getting the change management and then getting your approval and backup from management and all the stakeholders, um, um, to get you onboarded into FlowForma.
Quick wins, high impact results.
Yes.
So you bring everyone on that journey in terms of they can see the benefits.
Yeah, if they can see the benefits, and and resolving those very painful processes, usually helps with that adoption.
Okay, that's
Mhm.
great. Okay, cheers. Thanks very much for your insights and for joining us today, and answering those questions, Sarah. It was great.
Cool. Mhm.
Thanks very much.
Okay.
And just on those challenges that Sarah experienced in terms of her journey, you can see common public administration processes and challenges use case here. So if any of our audience today are experiencing issues, you can see on your screen now in terms of manual paper-based processes, inconsistent processes, disparate workforce, inefficient processes. Here you can see some of the typical use cases where FlowForma can be applied in comic public administration in order to achieve those similar success to Sarah. So if you're interested in achieving the results that Sarah has achieved, we'd be delighted to talk to you. So get in contact with the team. We'd be more than happy to set up a session, consultancy session, to talk to you about your challenges and how FlowForma can align as a solution to achieve the similar success as Sarah has in the Department of Health and Human Services in the state of Utah.
Thanks so much, Robbie and Sarah, for that great interview. We're going to be having our live demonstration of FlowForma in action, with David Shanley. Um, if I hand it over to you, Dave.
Thanks, Hannah. Okay, so what we're going to cover off in this demonstration is what it's like for an end user to interact with a FlowForma form. And we're going to go under the hood and we're going to build out some processes using Copilot, which is our new generative AI feature, which allows you to build out the framework of your process in a matter of seconds. So to start with, we'll take a look at what it's like for an end user to use FlowForma forms. They can do so via a browser, such as a SharePoint team site dashboard like you see here, which allows you to go into the appropriate section and work on forms that require your attention. So for example, here, if I go into this page here via my SharePoint team site, I can initiate a form by clicking on the relevant tile. But I can also go in and pick up any existing forms that require my attention here from this working dashboard. Now, that's very useful if you have a high volume of forms land on your desk. You may not want to be receiving email notifications continuously, but other users may not want to touch a dashboard like this, and they might simply get an email notification. They would click on the link in the body copy of that email and it would take them straight through to the step that they own in the form. So that's the browser interactions, either via working dashboard or via an email comms. We also have a mobile app for both iOS and Android, which also has offline capabilities. Now, there's a lot of features and functionality that we're not going to cover off in this short demo here. One that I would like to mention briefly is our Engage feature. So Engage allows you to bring third parties into a process either anonymously or using secure access. So they can own a defined step in the process. If it's anonymous access, it's using a form service. They won't be classed as a FlowForma end user, which means you might have 500 internal users. You could have 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 potential external users. Those parties can be brought in using anonymous access via that form service into defined steps within that process. So just to show you what the form looks like for an end user in a browser, I'm going to go into a pre-existing one here called recording of issues, which is a non-conformance form. And I want to talk a little bit about the layout of the form. So this is currently on the action owner 1 step, which is a parallel step here. So action owner 1 and action owner 2 both can engage in their steps concurrently. You can also have steps running in sequence. So this process here starts off on the initial step here, whereby it's determined that there are non-conformance issues. And what we use in the background here is we use some native SharePoint lists to look up and cascade through. So if I choose competence here, I want to see a non-conformance rated category level 2 item for competence. Similarly for environmental, same principle here. I'm also able to surface up document links here as well, because we sit on SharePoint, we're tightly integrated with it. We can manage and maintain SharePoint list document libraries. It's native integration for us. What's also happening here on this initial step here is we're generating a document, and I'm going to open this up here very quickly. It's a PDF that's generated here, but this originated as a Word document. So FlowForma has a Word plugin that allows you to use any pre-existing Word template and populate that with content from the form instance in which it's created. All you have to do is position your tokens in here in your actual document template. What you can also apply here as well as logic. So if I go into my rules tab here, you'll see it's displaying this section when a certain condition is true. What that means essentially is a generated Word document you do get, it can be governed by a condition. If a condition is met, it's generated in the form, but that document in turn can be converted to a PDF. It could be bolted onto an email, either internal or external. It can be routed through to a document library. So again, just to step through this process, and the reason I want to step through this one is just to show you what the form looks like for an end user, but also as well to kind of time box this and give you a sense as to what you can achieve in a very, very small time frame. And this is building out the process from the ground up. This is not using Copilot, which you're going to be introduced to here now in a moment. So we go from our initial step, which is being submitted, through to an acceptance step. Now on this acceptance step, had I rejected it, I could send it back to this initial step using a business rule and have the issues addressed. But it's moved all the way through into root cause review. And again, with root cause review, we're using cascading this lookups here to actually go for a root cause analysis. So quality control, level 2, level 3, and then the cost band. And then it moves through to this step here called actions. Now on the action step, the action owner is able to take each of these individual non-conformance line items here and assign them to a specific owner that's tasked with resolving them. So the moment they submit that step, it goes straight through to those action owners. And they have the opportunity then to go in and resolve their issues before it goes through to approval. This process built from the ground up would take you about 5 or 6 hours, just to give you a sense of what you can build in a very, very narrow time frame. And again, building from the ground up. This isn't using Copilot, which we're going to step into now in a moment. So I'm just going to open back up our dashboard here, and I'm going to move through into our FlowForma app instance here. So this is where the FlowForma admin does their physical process building from. Again, it's not where the end user goes in. They could go in, say, via SharePoint team site and a working dashboard page. This is where the admin goes in to do their building from, building out the process or making changes to an existing process. What we're going to do first is we're actually going to go in and we're going to take a look at a couple of different ways you can generate a framework using Copilot in Flow Designer. So the forms we're going to look at here, we're going to look at a change request here, and this is just one I grabbed off the internet here. It's a pre-existing form. So what we want to be able to do with Copilot is we want to be able to take that information and using Gen AI, give us a framework of our build in Flow Designer. So we wanted to be able to recognize the various different sections, which are going to be steps like change description, change impact, and sign off. And that's one way we're going to do it. We're also going to take a look at a flow diagram. So in this case here, I've just drawn out a flow diagram for a new supplier onboarding process. It could be done in Visio as well, but you can hand draw it. And again, Gen AI is going to go in, it's going to recognize these as steps in the process, and it's going to build out a framework, a suggested framework of that build for me. So we're going to do those two first. And then when we've done that, we're going to go into a purchase requisition process that I've already pre-built using query and response with Copilot. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to go down to our Copilot 18. So Copilot 18 is just the name I've given this process build here. So what you're looking at here is Flow Designer. So Flow Designer is a 4-in-1 toolkit. It combines forms, workflow, document generation, and Copilot in a single build interface. Single build interface is very important, as you'll see as we progress here. You apply your business and workflow logic in this interface here as well using 100% no code, which means you don't have to go and weave together an app component with a workflow component. That's all well and good if it's a simple process. If it's a process that has a level of complexity, that can be very, very challenging going in and unpicking that or making changes to it. So we're going to start off with here is we're going to look at our change requests. So I'm going to actually go in here. Actually, before I do, just to talk about the different sections here. The left-hand section is going to be the framework of your build. It's going to be your steps. It's going to be questions underneath each step, which will be in line, and it'll be all the rules you apply. You'll see them contextually in this panel here once we start building. The middle panel here is for your configuration and settings, where you're going to be adding steps, questions of your own. You're going to be applying your business and workflow logic here from this panel. The right-hand panel here, we starting off with Copilot. We're going to get Gen AI to put that framework in place for it once we have the artifacts in place, and then form previews. When you have your framework in the left-hand panel, you can then have a preview of that form as you're building out. But we're going to start from scratch, from the ground up, and we're going to go in and we're going to grab that change request, which is sitting here. So what I'll do here is just to give a little bit of a prompt here as well, I'm going to just inform Gen AI that this is a change request process. So when I go in here and click the little paper plane here, it's going to return to me its suggested framework for that build. And obviously in this case here, I want that to 100% resemble the document that we sent through to it. And as you can see here, it's recognized the various different steps here. Change description. It's also recognizing the question types, whether it's a person or group or a date and time, and it's giving me my different options here for my choice as per the form. We've got our change impact step here again, and our sign-offs. So I could go and I could continue to make refinements to this build, and once I'm happy with it, then I hit build, and what that does is that then brings across into my left-hand panel here that framework. So I'll have my steps in place, I'll have my questions in situ, and it will also suggest business rules here as well if it feels they're appropriate to the build, like hide show question, hide show step rules, and we'll embed them in the framework in the left-hand panel here, as you'll see here now in a moment. So just while that's building here, I just might show one other thing just in a separate panel here. So one thing I want to cover up very briefly here whilst that's building is I want to go in and I want to show you Insights. So Insights is our BI tool, which allows you to surface up kind of meaningful reports in a very, very intuitive BI tool to build with. So all the data is pushed through almost instantaneously into Azure SQL and picked up by our BI tool. This BI tool allows you to have an out-of-the-box suite of charts here that are process performance related that don't require any configuration on your part. You simply add them in yourself. What this allows you to do is if you have service level agreements, time to completion, you can surface that information up very, very quickly using these out-of-the-box reports. So for example, if I go in here and I went into expenses, it'll give me a tabular view of those form instances. I can drill down into those form instances and I can actually assign those or delegate those up to other individuals to free up bottlenecks. It'll also give you insights as well here as to how forms are performing relative to obviously the defined SLAs here, but also as well, you'll find out what processes are the most popular within the organization, and you can take a look and see where there's patterns. So for example, here in the leave request, you can see here, you've got a spike just before the summertime on leave requests and a spike just before Christmas. So these are all out of the box charts. They don't require any configuration. You can simply drop them in, but you can also create your own business related charts with the business data you're collating, and that information can be meshed through here into your diagram as well. So I'm going to step back in here into my environment. Just bear with me a moment. So I'm going to go in just whilst I'm getting that to load up here. I'm going to go back into my own environment here and I'm going to show you what it's like to build out. So my connectivity is a little bit patchy at the moment, so just bear with me. I'm just going to do a quick refresh here. Okay. So just whilst that's loading up, I'm going to show you kind of a pre-canned one I have here. So this is a purchase requisition process. This purchase requisition process was built using Copilot, and you'll see here how that was built. So you'll see here, this is a conversation I had with Copilot. So create all steps in purchase requisition process is my initial request. And then you'll see what Copilot has responded with. It's given me these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 steps. And again, you can see here it's picking up the relevant data type or question type here. So if it's requested by, it's a person or group. If it's a date required, it's a date and time question type. And all of those data types will be mapped into your framework in the left-hand panel. So my second request here was include approval step if requisition is in excess of 10,000. So again, if it's in excess of 10,000, I want to have that additional layer of approval. So you can see here, it's done that. And then I wanted to add 5 questions to each step in the last response. So again, it's just to flesh it out, get additional questions in place. It's also added those for me. So all I did after that was hit build. The moment I hit build, that framework is brought across here for me. And I can start work on it. And all you have to do then is you can toggle on form preview here. You're done with Copilot, and you will see a preview of what you've actually got in place. Now, all I've done with this build, this took a matter of like 10 seconds or so, 20 seconds to render. Once that's in situ, all I've done in this instance here is I've just added 2 questions here, and I'm going to show you what I've added here. So if I go in here and start a test form, what I've done is on this second step here, I've added a repeating table because I've decided, you know what, maybe there's more than one item is going to be requested. So I'm going to actually remove these, and I added this repeating table. And this repeating table is similar to what we had in situ in the non-conformance. We're using cascading lists here to filter and ensure that the user is making the appropriate choice. What I'd like to do here is I need to put a business rule in place so that if, for example, total cost is 20,000, I want to engage that additional approval step. But if it's less than 10,000, I want that to be out of the form. I don't want it to be engaged with. So we're going to put a business rule in place to facilitate that. What we're also going to do here as well on the manager approval step is manager approval is no. That's when I want to see the comments. And if manager approval is no, I want to kill off the process when I click submit. I don't want to see these subsequent 3 steps here. So I'm going to put a rule in place for that. And whilst we're at it, we might also put a rule in place here on our initial step. So purpose of purchase will give the user a lookup choice there. And if they choose other, we're going to show that. What we also have, I added here as well, aside from the table, is I just added a quick AI summarization rule. So the AI summarization rule is a built-in rule that allows you to take data from multiple different steps in the process and collate it into a Gen AI summary. Very, very useful if you've got a large number of steps and you want to have that information collated and gathered in the summary. If you like that summary, then you can use that summary going forward. It can be embedded in documents, it can be embedded in emails and so on. So it's very, very useful. So I'm going to close out of this here. I'm going to start here on the initial step here. So on the initial step here, we've got purpose of purchase. So there's different trigger points where you can apply rules. There's question change rules and step level rules. So question change rules fire on the trigger question, and these are used a lot to dynamically hide and show content. So for example, what I want to do here is I want to give the user a choice here. So purpose 1, 2, 3, and 4 and other as their choices. If they choose other, I want to see what that is, rather than multiple lines of text. That's the first change I'm going to make to the build. So I'm going to my question here, and I'm going to edit it. And I'm going to change that to a lookup. Now I have a list in place, a single column list, and I'm going to actually use that as my choice drop down here. So we're going to go here, purpose is the list, and it locks into it here. And what I want to do next is I want to add other as a choice. I'll leave that a single line of text. So now that I know what I want to have happen here, it's very easy to understand where you need to apply your business and workflow logic. I'm going to hide this question. It'll remain hidden. The trigger point to determine whether it's required or not is here. So this is where I'm going to apply my first rule. So again, question change rules fire on a trigger question, step level rules fire at step level. So step level rule would fire from clicking submit or save when you're committing to submitting it, moving on to the next step should there be one. So I'm on my trigger question. If I go to my add rules, you'll see all the rule categories available to me. So I'm going to use a workflow control rule, but there's lots of other rules I can use here in data integration, communications, SharePoint actions. There's a lot of depth here. So I'm going to use a hide show question rule. And the condition I'm going to put in place is this. If I drill down, if purpose of purchase equals other. So it's simple business logic. It's 100% no code. If that condition is fulfilled, I want to show other, which is hidden by default. And that's my first rule in place. And again, as you're building, you can create a test form and you can test what you're building as you're building it. So again, if I go in here, I can see purpose of purchase no longer multiple lines of text. It's a list lookup. If I choose other, it asks me what it is. If I change my mind, that's gone. So it's all about iterative building. It's all about making changes and making refinements as you go. Requested by, I'm going to make that a read only. I don't want the user to edit it. On the second step here, we've got our total cost. So the total cost here, what we want to do is we want to engage the additional approval step. And you'll see here it's brought in the rule for me by default. I could use that rule or I could create one from scratch here. So I'm going to do a scratch one here. So I'm going to hide this step. The trigger point to determine whether this step is required is here. So if total cost is greater than 10,000, we need to engage the additional approval step. So I'm on my trigger question. It's another question change. If I go to add rules, this time it's a hide show step rule. If I edit my conditions and I drill down into my specify requirement step, if total cost is greater than 10,000. Again, simple logic. It's 100% no code. It's not expression language. It's not low code. I want to show our additional approval step that we've hidden. That's another rule in place. But what you'll see here as you start building is you can see where your rules sit. You've got that contextualization. It's a single build interface. If I select here, I can see my table. If I select here, I can see my rule. If I select here, it defaults to question summary. What I want to do next is I want to go in. Actually, let's just do a quick test of that because it's all about iterative building. So if I do a quick test here on that step, you'll see here we've got our repeating table. If I put in a quantity here and I say put in 20,000, you see here there's no additional approver. So if I go in and put in 20,000, we now have an additional approval. If I knock a zero off that, it's gone. So I'm going to close out here. I'm going to move to the manager approval step here now. On the manager approval step, I'm going to hide the comments. What we want to do is we want to only show the comments if manager approval is no. So I'm on my trigger question. It's a question change rule. If I go to my add rules, it's a hide show question rule. And my condition in this instance is if I drill down, if manager approval equals no. So if that condition is met, and again, I like to copy and just paste this into the title. If that condition is met, I want to show comments. What I also want to do here as well is I also want to remove any subsequent steps. So if manager approval is no, I want the form to close out the moment the user clicks submit, which means I have to hide all the next steps. So I'm going to go add rules. It's a hide show step rule. And if I go in and edit my conditions and I drill down again, if manager approval, the same condition, equals no. So if that condition is met, what do I want to do? I want to hide all subsequent steps. And those subsequent steps are additional approval, procurement review, and finally finalize and submit. So again, just to do a quick test on what we have in place, if I click save, and we go into, let's just do a form from scratch here. Create test form. So you'll see here, again, what I could do here is I could use a get user profile rule here and pull that information through from the user's profile and map in the department. Or what I could do here is I could use a get list data rule if that matrix exists in the SharePoint list and map in that individual's department. Again, rather than have them free texted in, a rule would pull it in, and this would be read only. Again, date required, I can set that to the current date, or I can set it to a date in the future. Purpose of purchase, we can see our rule firing here. Approximate budget. So when I click submit, the moment I click submit, you can have rules firing here as well. So typical rules you might have firing on submit would be step assigned to the next step. You might have to assign that to an individual, maybe based on your department, maybe your manager. You would be sending them an email. You could be generating a document. You can be updating a system and so on. But these types of rules are used once the user is committed to submitting the step. You can also have rules fire on save as well. So if it's a long running form the user has to dip in and out of, then you can use that. What we might do here is we might hide these guys here. And I'll put in the description. What do I want? I want the laptop. Supplier name. And I'm going to just fill this in here very quickly. Quantity is 1. And again, you'll see here we don't have our additional approval in place. You can see it's in place now. If I change my mind, that's gone. We have our total here. When I click submit, it moves through to the manager for approval. Again, they can be receiving an email notification. They can be assigned their step. And once it lands there, you can see here we've got our AI summarization rule firing, and I'm happy with that, so I'm going to like that. And again, now we have our manager approval. So if I approve, it's fine. If I say no, we now have comments which can be sent to the initiator via email if you want to let them know why it's been rejected. Or if I say yes, we're back in action again. And you'll see here as well, obviously the steps have been killed off because manager approval is no. What you can also do here, for example, is you might have the choices as approve, request amendment, and reject. In which case, if they choose request amendment, you would have a passback rule firing on submit here, again using 100% no code, and you could define what step you want to send that back to, and you could embed the comments there. So lots of different ways you can actually build this out and design it based on whatever your needs are. Just going to close out of this here. And again, the beauty of FlowForma is that you're working from a single build interface. Using Copilot, you can put your framework in place. You can either do that via your query response, as I've done here in this instance, or you can use a pre-existing form or a flow diagram and upload that, and it will generate the response for you and give you the framework. It's very easy to build and layer on top of that, as you can see, and you can very, very quickly get to time to value. And what's also very important here to be aware of is, because it's a single build interface, when you are going back into a process to unpick it and make changes to it, it's a lot easier to do so when you have that contextualization in place, when you can see where your rules sit, why they sit where they sit, as distinct from having to work with separate components like an app rendering your form and the likes of, say, for example, Power Automate rendering your workflow, having the knit to do together. That's very useful if the process is quite a simple process where you've got maybe one kind of form a user interfaces with and then a lazy approval. For processes that have any kind of a level of complexity, it's very, very challenging to build, but it's also equally challenging to go in and unpick and make changes to your builds. And that's a very, very quick introduction to FlowForma and its capabilities, with kind of a primary focus on Copilot, but also to give people a sense, hopefully, as to how quickly you can build and make changes to that build. I'm going to hand it across to you again there now, Hannah. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much, Jay, for going through that with us. And let me just share my screen. Perfect. And I just want to confirm that I'm sharing my screen. Yes. Okay. So as a next step, we will be delighted to offer you a free trial of FlowForma. You can request a free trial post-webinar in our survey or by visiting our website either. We are also on to our question and answer segment of the webinar. So let me see what we've got in our question box, and keep typing in. If we don't get all of them done now, we can always get back to you. And we'll have Robbie answering some of them as well. So let's see. So we have Jack saying he has Office 365. He is wondering, is onboarding with FlowForma simple? Maybe Robbie, could you answer that one?
Yeah, so as part of our package, our licensing package, the onboarding process, we build out your first process with you. There's 2 days training to bring you up to speed with how to build processes and maintain the system. So yeah, it's a really quick learning curve. The onboarding process, it's been a great success.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And then we also have Charlie, who is asking how quickly can non-technical users learn to build and manage workflows on this platform? So anyone to answer.
Oh, I think that's changing now, as Dave has just demonstrated with Copilot. So if you're a subject matter expert or an administrator of a process, really all that's required is knowledge of that process. And there's a really quick learning curve in FlowForma. So as David has just demonstrated, it's that one development environment, so to speak, where it's completely no code. So with business logic and your knowledge of that system, it's really quick to get up to speed. And I'm sure Sarah can verify that in terms of non-technical users learning to build and manage the system.
Right, right. And it is pretty simple. I mean, if you can write English, you pretty much can understand the code. That's pretty much how simple it is. Um, it took me, that first day of training to actually build a process. We had training in our department, so it was that very first day of training you will be able to build a process. So it's pretty simple and easy to understand.
I suppose that again probably covers the onboarding process then, Sarah, as well. So we had a question about what the onboarding process is like. So from your perspective,
Oh,
can you recall?
right. And just kind of a quick history with us was we started FlowForma in our on-prem environment before we moved to SharePoint Online. And because we had control of our on-prem environment, we were up and running within one day. It was implemented, installed, and within that same day, we were up and running. So pretty easy, pretty simple. With SharePoint Online, we had to work with our global administrators. So again, it took probably a couple of days because we had to put different people into the room to work together. But it was pretty easy. Within 2 days, we were up and running.
Okay.
Perfect. And then we also do have another question from Ashley. So she's saying her organization wastes a lot of time compiling documents. She wants to know, how was using FlowForma made simpler for DHHS? Maybe Sarah, could you answer that one?
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm just biased here, but I love FlowForma, and we have different tools within the department. Like I said, we have experience with InfoPath and SharePoint Designer. And we used to love that, but once we started using FlowForma, the visibility was just amazing. And once you automate, so once you get any of your manual processes automated, it's amazing. It's just the different steps from what David was demonstrating. You can see all the steps and where the process is, who is doing what, and who's approving it, how long it takes to complete the process, and the flexibility of returning the process to the beginning or to the next step. That flexibility is amazing. Um, so in short, we love it, and it was quite simple to get it there once you have your stakeholders on board.
Mhm. That's great. And we also have another one from Sam. They want to know, what type of reporting features does the FlowForma platform have? Maybe Robbie, could you take this one?
Yeah, so there's an entire dedicated analytics suite, so FlowForma Insights that David has demonstrated there. That can be a capstone that takes in all information from all FlowForma installations right across a tenant, so you can report on your bespoke data and drill down into key performance indicators within your process. There's other applications as well within the within FlowForma, such as collaborative work management, that allows you at a granular level to configure dashboards where you can see work queues, how many of a particular process at a particular step, things like that. And then there's process performance, which allows you to identify either key performance indicators or bottlenecks and to take action to eradicate and streamline your processes. So it depends on the angle that you're coming from, but I suppose the biggest feature that we would have that encompasses the whole application across a tenant-wide solution would be your FlowForma dedicated insight solution.
Perfect. Thank you so much, guys, for the interview and the demo, and Sarah for joining us as well today. If anyone else has any more questions, they're more than welcome to put it in the chat box or get on to us either via the website or the email address. So if we've shared really great insights. And yeah, I hope you have a great day, and thank you guys again for joining the webinar with me, and thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Sarah.
Bye
Thank you.
bye. See you.